Frank. What's the weirdest thing you've ever saw in here?
Let me ask you a question, kid. Did you see that movie, Night of the Living Dead?
Hey, we gonna party tonight or what?
Yeah, we are gonna party.
Well, where are we gonna party?
I don't know, somewhere.
Hey, we could go to the park.
Oh, no, we can't. The cops said they'd shoot us if we go back to the park.
Yeah, and I ain't in no mood to die tonight.
I like death.
Ghouls, and welcome to minute 58 of Do You Want to Party, the Movies by Minute podcast of the 1985 groundbreaking horror classic, The Return of the Living Dead. I'm your host, Troy, and joining us for this minute is a returning producer with his director partner.
Hello.
Hello. I'm Keith Kopp, director of First Christmas, talking to you today from Bath, England.
And yeah, I'm Luke Allen, and it's great fun to be back, and you let me bring a friend this time. So
yes, exactly. When you proposed this idea, I'm like, yeah, no, definitely. So, well, we've already talked to Luke about this movie in the past. Keith, what's your experience with the 1985 movie Return of the Living Dead?
So I seen this probably 10 or 12 years after it came out. I saw it on VHS, in the Pacific Northwest, where I'm originally from. And I think I liked it, but I didn't have a great sense of where it stood in the lore. And in my mind, I think there's bits of like Romero's work that got confused with this film as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, they all complement each other. It's amazing. But I did love this genre especially when I was younger. This whole kind of zombie survival thing, and I also saw a few years later, 28 Days Later, which I feel like revitalized the genre and just keep going to this day. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. All right, so we can go more into that later on. Let's just get into this particular minute. So this minute is going to start with wailing away at limbs and ends with sealing off the final room. So we begin with seeing the briefest of shots of one of the shelves of the giant wood cabinet, oversized nails scattered over its surface as frantic hands of both Spider and Ernie grab at them. Jumping to a pulled back shot showing the four men doing the two duties currently being executed. The previously mentioned Spider and Ernie can concentrate their efforts to secure the heavy piece of furniture to the wall surrounding the front entrance to block the building horde of ghouls from entering. Flanking either side are Bert and Scuzz, each having to handle separate windows as the creatures smash through the glass portions. Thankfully, the thick, ornate wood multiple X pattern frames are holding out for now, but Bert's lead pipe and Scuzz's long-handled mallet whack away at the hideous upper appendages that claw in between the gaps. In mid-swing, Bert spins his back towards his window and points.
The windows in the chapel!
And pointing, he exclaims the necessity of proceeding to the adjacent room. We see Ernie turn from his duty as Bert and Spider take off. Getting to the double doors of the holy room, Bert tears them open and dashes inside. Directly behind him, Spider continues to open the doors fully. Stepping away from his window, Scuzz slips, slides, and falls to the ground in his scrambled attempt to proceed to the chapel. From his hurried but cautious movements, Ernie passes behind the arm-flailing Scuzz. Clearly, the marble floor of the foyer still slick with the water after Ernie allowed salvation to the three punks a few moments ago. Now that the interior lights are fully on, we not only see a welcoming desk set between the one window and the chapel doors, all located to the left of the front door once entering. The light-topped podium, there's a light-topped podium that stands there, and a very late 70s style display of long-dried fuzzy plants stands tall, clustered in an oversized planter. A most disturbing piece of artwork adorns the wall just outside the chapel. A creepy, big-eyed painting of a small child in a glass-covered frame hauntingly looks towards the viewer. We unlock a new location. From inside the chapel, Bert is stepping into the colored lights being supplied by an exterior source. the multiple colored glass giving the dark room a haunted feeling. We can make out folding metal chairs for the overflow crowd, the outline of a few pews, one of which reflecting the mosaic stained glass windows. And as Bert and Spider explore deeper, a wall sconce, like the ones along the hallways of the funeral parlor, adorns the wall. We see just outside the room Ernie advancing forward as Scuzz, who seems to have not fallen now. Spider shouts a request.
Is there anything to board these windows with?
And once Ernie joins them while turning on the switch for the room, Ernie responds and backs up his reasonings.
I don't think we have to. I put bars outside the glass.
The newly lit room revealing an ornate woodwork framing the room and hinting at the vaulted ceiling. More fake candle bulbs providing light. A phrase of "beyond this fleeting day, the rest from which no man wakes," above the exit of this room. Bert wanders between two of the highly colored stained glass displays, and as if on cue to Ernie's inclusion of the security feature, hands suddenly crash through one window, tossing Bert into a defensive mode again. His lead weapon coming down on the limbs. Ernie's face shocked either from wondering if the previously mentioned security details will work, or witnessing the artistic windows being destroyed. Most likely a combination of the both. Bert crying out for more defensive building techniques. A very frustrated Bert wails away at his focused target, still thrusting through the disintegrating barriers. At the other window, Scuzz joins the new cause, his mallet smashing down frantically. Ernie and Spider looking to have abandoned the scene to retrieve materials to block the windows. Meanwhile, out in the parking lot, from inside the cab of the ambulance, we see sitting on the ground a drenched in blood ghoul, still chomping down on the remains of the skull of one of the ambulance workers, its yellow rain jacket slick with its own blood identifying him. This new to us creature, holding in its hands the head of his meal as he munches down on the inside. The slight sound of rain and is still populating the scene. A little bit away on the wet grass, we can make out the legs of another monster, obviously doing the same. The crackling static of the ambulance radio crackles to life as a female voice calls for a response.
Rescue 7, come in. This is dispatch, over.
Hearing the voice, the close-by corpse drops his feast and crawls over its body to slink its way inside the seating area of the vehicle. As it gets close enough to reach for the radio's receiver, in the background, the other creature is clearly munching away on the severed head of the second ambulance assistant. It's identifiable by its big, bushy beard. The voice repeats its request for a response.
Rescue 7, come in. This is dispatch. Do you copy, over?
As the gore-faced monster pulls the radio receiver to his face, its equally grotesque hand activating the microphone.
Come in dispatch. Send more paramedics.
Its subterfuge to call for the need for assistance for more help. We then get a montage of shots. Seems the group of four have been hard at work. The front entrance secured. Large wood walls that look like they could be part of a crate, blocking the two windows on either side of the cabinet-sealed door. Inside the chapel, similar wood crate parts block the windows. The situation of the now open casket seen for the first time. Furniture overturned in Ernie's office while the Mod Podge of wooden scraps secure the one window here. Now inside what looks to be a storage room for the funeral parlor, parlor's caskets, Bert, Spider, Scuzz, and Ernie focus on an array of assorted wood, hammering with their various tools to secure this window, and that's where we end this minute. So, not a lot goes on. There's quite a bit of activity being pulled in here because we are in like the crucial moment of, let's secure this building sort of thing. Every classic zombie movie has it. They have to make sure that no one can get in, and these four guys have obviously, from the looks of their work, have been working hard. So we obviously jump cut to little time has passed on because as we find out in the next minute, there has been some time that has passed on. So, anything that you guys want to bring up from this particular minute that stuck out to you?
Yeah, I love the music in this film. Like, I
Yes.
think it was
Yeah.
really, really clever that they took on board a punk soundtrack. Because, like,
Hmm.
I don't know, maybe I'm going too deep with this, folks, but like, it feels like what's happening is anarchy. You know what I mean? And like, then we had that kind of like youthful grunge energy happening in the film,
Yeah.
and then when
Yeah.
that's married to humor, like, it's really fun, and it's really pulls us through the story. It's quite interesting because I know it's set in Kentucky, but it was from what I just read, it was shot in LA, right? And
Yes. Yeah.
I was listening to another podcast by the director Penelope Spheris, who directed Wayne's World, and which ties another film that ties more directly to my point is that the decline of the Western civilization, which is one of the essential punk documentaries.
Yeah. Yeah.
She said something about like how punk survived longer in Los Angeles than the rest of the world. For some reason, there was a quality, about LA that just like wouldn't let it go. And other parts of the world by 1985 have moved on and are developing other stuff where there's like the second wave of punk music, but the original stuff is still kind of happening as well in LA. And I find that really fascinating. Um, yeah, I don't know. I like practically wise, like so I was in the I had a very short time in the military, and I'm thinking about like tactics. I'm really worried for them how close they're getting to the windows with those bats and all the weapons that they have. I'm like, don't get those arms bitten, guys. But of course that's what they have. You have to get close, and it's like that practical element of trying to keep danger at bay from you physically, and that's I found really exciting. And I won't take this whole point because I know Luke, you were thinking about it as well. But like, I really love how there's kind of like an evolution of zombies in this film. How the cognitive ability is quite like impressive. So obviously, the zombie you mentioned that was like feasting on the person on the ground has the ability still to pick up the radio and have that kind of conversation to bring more food to him. And that's developed on from going back to Romero and Night of the Living Dead. They're slow, they're not particularly smart from what I remember of that film. So those are the points that just like automatically grab me from watching this film and specifically this minute.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I think one of the things that really kind of stuck out to me as well is, I mean, I feel like we're very lucky with a minute like this, as you kind of talk about it being such an iconic trope of a scene like this, that we've got so much like horror iconography at play here, both in the way that it's lit through that kind of church setting, but also the church does allow for that sort of parallel of how often horror kind of crosses over into religion. And there's this real kind of continued iconography of churches within horror, and the kind obviously like crucifix has a bigger play in stuff like vampire lore, but the sight of it all I think is just it feels very comfortable in the genre it's in. And Keith and I were chatting a little bit before this about 28 Years Later being probably the most recent, I'm assuming, unless something else come out in like the past month, kind of example of zombie horror. And that kind of iconography and color schemes and aesthetic is all very, very similar. There's a scene very early on involving kind of church. I want to come with like this Christian perspective of being like discussing more in depth, but both Keith and I are Christian about like that parallel, but I feel like I just haven't like got a really detailed thought on that other than it's
Nothing
like
will make me want to pray quicker than a zombie coming at me, guys. Let's just be honest with you there.
That's true too. That's true too. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So Keith, to your point and all that sort of thing, yes. The thing about Dan O'Bannon's zombies in this movie, and again, like Romero and all that sort of thing, the characters aren't actually called zombies within the film itself. But it is in, I believe it's uh Day of the Dead. That's the third Romero, right? It's night, dawn, day, right? Dawn is the is the one that takes place. So when they get into the army shelter of Day of the Dead, we encounter Bob the zombie, who is the military character that seems to be reflecting on past memories being brought to life. That's where Dan O'Bannon played on the, hey, as soon as they get reanimated, they get their old personalities back. So that's why we have like a tar man that can talk and all that sort of thing. That's why we have the screaming yellow man that attacks Frank, Freddy, and Bert outside when he's out of the freezer and all that sort of thing. So yes, characters are more evolved. These are the first, also one of the first actually fast-moving zombies to be introduced to the genre. They become hugely popular when the remake of Dawn of the Dead is made, the Zack Snyder, James Gunn written story and all that sort of thing, where every zombie suddenly turns into a sprinter. But yeah, Dan O'Bannon and like William Stout, like previously in the commentary tracks, have mentioned like, yeah, we didn't want these lumbering characters. Like if they move around like the mummy, they're not going to be that much of a challenge. So that's why and the producers were totally against, no, zombies are slow moving. And they're all like, but we've seen slow zombies. Why don't we make this a challenge? And that's why we have these running zombies.
I
So
mean,
it's
oh, sorry, it makes me think a lot about the like I'm a massive Doctor Who fan, and the Daleks were this big part of pop culture where the joke for ages was, well, if you're going to get with the Daleks, go upstairs. And then you get that real kind of iconic moment in remembrance of the Daleks where it just elevates. And I feel like it's kind of, it had become a big part within pop culture. And there was that sort of joke of like, well, everyone can outrun them. That actually the way of making it really terrifying, and I think it can be really hard to make something so iconic within pop culture terrifying because it's been the butt of jokes for years, is to suddenly take that one weakness, that one joke, and like pull that away, and suddenly the comfort that you've hidden behind in all of these jokes of Daleks can't climb stairs or zombies are really slow, you throw that away and they've got like so much more power, and your comfort even as like an audience member just isn't there anymore.
all right. So over on the commentary track, which is the version that we are dealing with, is from the Blu-ray, where it's Dan O'Bannon, who is the writer and director of the movie, and William Stout, who is the production designer. So once they are inside the chapel, William Stout points out that it's the little chapel. Then Dan O'Bannon brings up wanting to use the Mathis Grunwalk, the crucifixion artwork that he wanted to adorn one of the walls in this small little chapel with, and how unfortunately he had chickened out at the last minute. But during the commentary track, he reflects and going, you know what, I should definitely not have chickened out on that situation. And as we see the ambulance shot, William Stout points out how they are using real brains being consumed in this scene, which we had mentioned a few minutes earlier that Dan O'Bannon had proposed, hey, I'll pay you guys a little extra if you guys eat these live brains. Here, I'll show you they're okay. And Dan O'Bannon himself, to show that it was perfectly fine, ate the brains in front of the extras. So anybody you see chowing down on, and again, you don't really actually see this guy eating brains, but apparently he was eating brains and all that sort of thing. So
You
I'm gonna have
feel
to assert myself on set next time by showing all the extras I'm eating brains. No context provided, though.
So then Dan O'Bannon goes on mentioning how great this guy was, and he also points out that the he really enjoyed the color of the blood on him. As the shot of the work is shown, William Stout points out how everything is boarding up, and that's where the commentary ends because, well, that's where the minute itself ends. All right, so we're yeah.
Sorry.
So now we do the according to the script, which is again, we use the story and screenplay by Dan O'Bannon, and we're using the revision from October of 1983. And of course, this is based on the story and screenplay by John Russo, Rudy Rickey, and Russell Steiner. So we start with the interior entrance foyer night rain. They nailed the high boy to the door solidly. Bert. Is there anything else they can get in? Ernie, the windows in the chapel. They run into the chapel and frantically begin boarding up the windows, using whatever materials come to hand. Exterior, mortuary, parking lot, night, rain, drizzle. The ambulance is sitting with its doors open. Several corpses sit and lie around it, like drunken men. They look satisfied. One corpse sits on the ground, holding the body of the paramedic number 2 in his lap, and is munching calmly on the back of the medic's head, getting out the last scraps of brain. It raises its head, wipes its mouth, and belches. Its eyes look like it's just shot heroin. Blink, blink, yawn. It gets to its feet and wobbles over to the ambulance where it crawls through the open door. Interior cab of ambulance, night drizzle. The corpse turns on the radios and picks up the microphone. After some fumbling, he gets a voice to come onto the speaker. Dispatcher's voice on the radio. Rescue 12, Rescue 12, come in. This is dispatch, over. The corpse raises the microphones to his lips. Corpse into radio. Come in, dispatch. Send more paramedics. The corpse hangs up. Interior, mortuary, coffin storage room, night, drizzle. They, Bert, Ernie, Meat, Scuzz, nail shut the single window. Now, as it came up and all that sort of thing, this version of the script has 2 alterations to names. Meat, who is actually Spider later on, and whenever we say Dee Dee, we are referring to the character of Trash. So, and that's where the minute catches up with it. So it's nice to see that between this version of the script, which again, it's the October 83 version, when they're literally just about to start production of filming the movie, that the whole entire sequence with the metal bars are not included. They go right to nailing the windows up. There's no extra whatnot. The foyer sequence is there, but the encounter in the interaction inside the whatchamacallit is not there. And also how the ambulance is a little different. It's not the zombie getting the idea once it hears the radio, it decides, you know what, this probably is going to work, sort of thing. So it's again showing the intelligence of the characters still being there from its past.
That is another unique feature I think about this film, that like actually the zombies are characters. They're not just like a mob. Actually, there's some characters that stand out. And you mentioned, I was listening to one of the previous episodes. You're talking about, is it Tarman?
Yeah.
You've labeled, yeah, like him, and obviously the guy that was yellow in the container as well.
Again, called Yellow Man. Very, very simple names. Yeah, the guy that looks like Tar is Tar Man. The guy that's all yellow is Yellow Man. Yeah.
Sure. So I think that adds to scariness as well. That adds to that as well, as that there's focusing on that evolution, but also like seeing that character, and it's not just a faceless mob.
I think it's an interesting kind of gamble as well when you kind of do that with piece of media. Because I think in this scenario it does make them more scary or more intense, but definitely I've seen other examples in which I think it can. I'm going to make the Doctor Who comparison again. Hey ho. There's I don't know if it's a controversial opinion or not either, but the Series 5 Weeping Angel storyline, like you have the Weeping Angels have a voice, and there's one they start calling Angel Bob. Personally, that made them way less scary, like that they had the personalities than them being a horde in that scenario. And I don't think the show ever properly salvaged back from that. That might have just been because Blink was so good. I do like a lot of their other appearances, but I don't think maybe until Village of the Angels it quite had what it did. But yeah, I feel like I might get a lot of Doctor Who fans shouting at me and saying that actually that storyline's great and I got it wrong. But whatever I say, I'll have Doctor Who fans shout at me because they're Doctor Who fans. But like but I think it does work really nicely here. But I think it does have a danger of sort of affecting the brand of zombies per se.
Well, that's a great example. Yes. Angel Bob is a fantastic example for that. But again, I think this is also because it's new to the lore too. Like Dan O'Bannon hit it at a point where zombie movies are just the horde. It's just the mass of moving flesh-eating creatures. This is the first appearance of zombies craving brains as well, which is also new to the lore from this. From this point on, they're all like, "Oh, they want to consume your brains," and all that sort of thing. Also, not very movies go into what was also introduced is the undyingness of the return to animated corpses. You can't stop these things. There's no way to stop these things. You chop off a bit, that bit is still going to keep moving. Other movies rarely go to that. They go destroy the head, it's done, which makes sense. If you've got a body, you need a brain to move it on and all that sort of thing. So this is some more supernatural sort of thing to allow them to continue to move once removed from the brain and all that sort of thing. So it's I think that's the main reason why others don't do it. So destroying the brain stops the actual uh creature from continuing on. But yeah, so the introduction of the stuff that Dan O'Bannon does is so new that I think it's a welcome thing to all of a sudden, oh, we've got characters that are zombies, are these monsters and all that. And this movie has quite a few pointed out. Like I said, we've had Yellowman, we've had Tarman, we've had the legless corpse, which was the short actually gentleman who was actually missing three limbs as an actor and all that sort of thing. He just had his one right arm and all that sort of thing. So he was this scary little jump scare sequence and all that sort of thing. And of course, we got some other future characters like the half corpses coming up and all that sort of thing, which is another iconic character from this movie and all that. And that's the other thing about it, because these are, and also having the line "send more paramedics" is also such a huge catchphrase from this movie as well. So you have iconic lines situated with iconic characters and all that sort of thing. So when you think of the movie, you see an image of these characters, you're like, oh, I know exactly who that is. I know exactly what movies that's from. Whereas you show a random zombie from another movie and all that sort of thing, you're like, ah, might be this movie, might be that movie and all that sort of thing. So the choice to make iconic characters is fantastic, but like Luke said, I think other people shied away from that from the exact reason that there would be like, okay, this might seem too farcical at this point. And it just happened to be the first time this has happened, and thankfully not a lot of people deal with that sort of deal.
I feel like that they've almost got a nice fallback with the slight satirical edge of this film anyway, that like
Supports
it's
that decision.
too classical, like it kind of plays into it all very, very nicely. And I was reading some stuff this morning about, I know this isn't a spoof, but it's kind of that it's spoof adjacent, about the sort of ruling of comedy and how kind of straight to play it. And I think the gags and the moments in this film, and obviously Keith, you spoke about the music earlier on, like I think it's also quite a nice juxtaposition at points in this minute that like only works because everything else is played really well to the beat.
The balance is good though, because you still feel like the characters are under threat, even though the humor exists. So I think that's where, you got to give the credit to Dan there for that. I think.
Oh, for sure. And to be able to pull off that sort of feat is a very difficult thing. To measure your scares with your humor, to put it at the right timing too, so that your audience gets its scare, then gets a laugh to relax themselves, and then gets another scare, which just amplifies the effect and all that sort of thing. Which
And
is a very
they're both fascinating genres, comedy and horror, because they're only effective if you get a very specific reaction
Mhm.
from. And so, yeah, I always think it's very brave to juggle both. But what I think is interesting about comedy and horror in that is brave to juggle both. I think that like if you do one of them poorly, it can become the other. More so poor horror becoming poor comedy, but there's definitely sort of poorly delivered comedy where you go, ooh, that makes me a bit uncomfortable. And it kind of plays that same beat. So I think they're fascinatingly adjacent genres.
That is exactly what it is. Yeah, it's easier to find a bad comedy that's a horror or a bad horror that's a comedy, but it's a diamond in the rough to find one that equally pulls off both. And again, those that do are if you go onto a list of horror films, those that have the perfect tone of comedy in it are probably going to be much higher in the list. Like my favorite movie of well, my second favorite movie of all time is An American Werewolf in London, which I think perfectly is the high mark of that sort of matching comedy with horror, but also like it's so realistic feeling. Like it deals with everything in its situation to its like maximum reality sort of thing, with still having the scares of horror and the relief of humor as well.
Absolutely, and I think it's. I mean, I was chatting with Keith a little bit earlier about. I'd just seen the new "I Know What You Did Last Summer" film, and we were sort of reminiscing on the original and on that sort of '90s horror feel. And I feel like those films work well because they know the bits that are a bit silly, and the campness makes the horror play better. I haven't decided what I think of the new one yet. Having seen it, but I think it's interesting, and I think it does make the horror work better when a film's willing to acknowledge the stuff that is a bit preposterous.
So now for the work print comparison. Now what it is we take the final footage that is shot completely for the final film. We bring it all together and we have this giant long version. They then take it to the editing and cut it down to our final version. So this has all the extras that are cut out, the scenes that are not needed, the extra long shots and all that. So for this particular minute, which is minute 57 to 58, on the work print, we are currently dealing with minute 67:52 to 68:56, so a couple of seconds longer. So in this version, we see the creatures pulling at the iron gates and punching through the glass, which is kind of neat inside the. We actually have a shot looking right at one of the stained glass windows as we see this and all that sort of thing. Plus, we have Scuzz running to the secondary window and to lend his mallet work instead of just him suddenly being there. So while Bert and Scuzz bash away, it's much longer. We have a couple of cuts from like a pullback shot, a close up of Bert, and he's just like Clue Gallagher is just shouting like at the top of his lungs. But the way that friggin' Clue is just walloping away on these probably just extras, just sticking their arms through and all that stuff, because it's not like they've got prop hands coming through. These are actually people just sticking their arms through because they're moving more than you would expect, like just a prop hand coming in and all that sort of thing.
I noticed that, and it's really interesting as well because I was like, oh, they're not cutting. They're not cutting to it. Like it's actually hitting. And I noticed that when I was watching. Wow, that's yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, in the previous minute, you can see, like again, you study a movie minute at a time, sort of thing. You spend like 2-3 hours looking at a 1 minute of sequence. You get to see the extra stuff that you wouldn't see as it's flying by you at its normal pace and all that. So there's a sequence where you can see him hitting the frame of the window, and you can clearly see that the lead pipe is giving way as it hits a solid object and all that sort of thing. But in this work print, he's just like standing there, just walloping away and all that sort of thing, which is kind of hilarious. So we also see we actually get to see, again, we cut back to the one where we see the window pane being worked on, all that sort of thing. The actual window gets pushed into, falls towards the camera and all that sort of thing. So obviously that shot is no longer in the final version because it's just a switch of angles sort of thing. And when we cut to the order of seeing the boarded up sequences and all that sort of thing, it's a little out of what we have in the final version. We actually see the chapel first, and then the front foyer, and then Ernie's office instead of the foyer, chapel, Ernie's office. And that's all we have is a difference and all that sort of thing. A couple of extra seconds of just Clue Gallagher going nuts on some extras with the rubber lead pipe, but it's always another fascinating thing to see footage because being a lifelong fan of the movie, I was only introduced to the work print when I started doing this project. And as a treat to myself, I've decided, okay, you know what? I'm just going to watch this work print in comparison to the movie. So as I watch the work print, I get the extra like, ooh, an extra scene, or like
Yeah.
a different cut, like because they record the on-set audio, obviously, is what they do, but later on in the movie, you sometimes have to do ADR because either your overlapping sound effects is too much. When they're doing exterior shots, we are dealing with actual water coming down, like a man-made rain machine and all that sort of thing. So that sometimes drowns out what is needed and all that. But every once in a while, lines are also changed too, which is kind of cool to hear the actual, oh, is that what they said? Or the scene cuts as they're about to say something, or the punk rock music gets too loud and you don't hear, but you get to hear what they actually say underneath because you don't film a score and all that sort of thing. The only time they have music in the work print is when Trash is doing her dance on in the graveyard, but it's not actually the final music. It's actually Vanity singing "Nasty Girl" sort of thing, which is not quite punk, but yeah, it's how
It's
it
so
goes.
brave to have something like that of your film out there.
Oh
I don't know,
yeah, yeah.
like comfortable. I don't know how about you, Keith? Like it feels like, oh, not that.
It's very fascinating. Yeah, it's I think today we're so worried as filmmakers about things getting out that aren't perfect, but actually, as you've just given a really clear example of how someone might actually love that. It's interesting
Yeah.
to me.
It's yeah, I definitely feel like especially it's perfect for a minute by minute like thing to have content like that. It's wonderful. It's like I was looking recently on the Criterion release of Anora, and they've got a bonus feature on there, which I'm like, I want this on every film ever, which is just a chronological compilation of all of the footage cast and crew got on their phones while filming. It's like a 45-minute thing of like 10-second clips of like, that's a nice shot, or of people like messing around on set. And I'm like, I want this of everything. This is just a lovely kind of snippet of life. I say that I feel like as a producer I might like look at some of that on First Christmas and things like that and be like, actually, no.
That's true. I guess there's certain things we don't want. You don't want to find out after it's happened, do you? You want to know while it's happening to make sure everything's.
Also, like, I've been on plenty of sets where there is a big strict policy about what you can take pictures of. Some where it's so extreme that you're like, oh, so you're definitely not checking this. But I was on one where it was like, all costume photos that are taken must be proven to like for continuity or anything, it must be proven to have been deleted by the end of production. And I'm like, you're definitely not checking that, which invertly suggests to me that you're fine with any photos. And then you read that, and then like, an A-list actor from the film like drops a picture on Instagram, and suddenly all the rules are broken because no one's gonna fire them over that. Yeah. Anyway, that's a big tangential rant, but yeah. So
Again, going back to it, the footage that I have is like extremely degraded. It's old footage. It's very dark. It's the audio isn't clear sometimes as well, but it's also like a VHS recording of a VHS recording of a VHS recording. So you know how the footage, and then someone digitized it. So obviously it's not going to get any worse than it currently is, but it still is what it is from a movie from 1985 that who knew that this work print where it was sitting before it was discovered in its current form and all that sort of thing. But again, I'm all for. I mean, again, if it's not too spoiler and all that sort of thing, I love seeing the behind the scenes of the actors on set pulling out their cell phones, showing their point of view of like, look at what I'm shooting right now. And when you have like directors and producers such as like a James Gunn who kind of encourages that sort of thing to happen and markets it along with the production and all that sort of thing. And again, extras on that is the reason to buy media is to get those extras to
absolutely, and I think you can put a cap on when stuff can come out.
for
I
sure,
think
yeah.
the rule is like, okay, take all the pictures you want on set, as long as you're not like losing us time by taking things everywhere. But
Yeah.
like, here's the cap on when you can release them, and there might be serious contract issues if you don't. But I've done shoots where I've just said like send them to production office before you post anything, and there might be something that that's fine you posting now like 6 months before it comes out, but other stuff no, let's keep that under wraps. Sometimes as well, there's some real stuff that like the cast and crew don't know isn't allowed to be released. I've filmed at locations that don't want certain elements to be disclosed. And actually, a green room might still have a sign of their logo, but they don't want to promote that they were the location and things like that. That you don't want to send a long list of do's or don'ts. It's a lot easier to just go, send them to me, and I will yay or nay on them. Ultimately, I get to look through lots of people's selfies, which is quite a nice job. Um, but yeah, I think it's fascinating with a film that's obviously wasn't to know it's how iconic it was going to be, to have kept stuff like that and not
Mhm.
had been taped over
Yeah.
I think every filmmaker now should reserve enough content for the future Movies by Minutes hosts.
I would hope so. I would hope so. All right, so that wraps up this particular minute. Anything you guys want to talk about for either this particular minute, the movie itself, and all that sort of thing?
Yeah, no, I think it's a pleasure rewatching it. It was quite fun. I love the genre of kind of like, I know it's not zombies. I will say zombies just for clarity from my perspective, zombie survival, horror comedy. I think it's really fun. I think it's interesting hearing the points that you had to say about like where did the director and writer kind of take the genre and move on from it and like add to it. And those points are, I think, very fascinating. But yeah, no, I think that's it. It's kind of been a pleasure.
Thank you. I thank you guys for joining me for this particular minute. But so the main reason, well, I reached out to Luke because of his movies by minute past when he first came on the show and all that sort of thing, which I was very grateful for. But Luke came up with this concept when I asked, "Hey, is there any time in the future that you'd want to come back?" And well, why don't you talk about what you guys are working on?
Yeah, it's a very different genre. I mean, Keith, do you want to start a little bit, and I'll interject
Yeah,
on what First
yes,
Christmas.
we're in development of a film called First Christmas. It's a film about the Shields family. It's set in Shropshire, England. This family has lost the mother and matriarch of the family, and the father, Frank, has made the decision to invite his adult kids back for the holidays, back for Christmas. And it's kind of a challenge because he's never had to step up in this way. And his wife, who passed, was this regional chef, and she used to make these beautiful Christmas memories. So he's like, okay, I'm taking on this challenge. And he invites his three adult children back, and they're all struggling with their own issues, things like confidence, addiction, all these kind of big things, which only get worse when the pressure of being back home, is realized. And I don't know about you, Troy, but I know when I go home, sometimes I feel like I'm 10 years old again, the way I get treated. And I think that's kind of funny. And when the writer and I originally, Lawrence Guy, who I worked with many times before, talked about this, three things kind of formulated the inception or the beginning of First Christmas. One is we both lost a parent, and talked about navigating the holidays after that person, how awkward and
Hmm.
tricky that is. And the second is like that point of humor that like though we're talking about death and grief and addiction, all these things, actually it's a really funny film. And we talked about how many like points of humor come out of these things in life. And the third and final one was about food and tradition. Like I know that like in my family we do certain things, we eat certain things, and there's like a universality to that, but also like everyone's family's kind of different. And I think First Christmas is about celebrating that. It's about celebrating second chances in life, which I think is just really important and hopeful. And where I do think there's probably commonality between the two films is actually there's fun, and I think we can never forget that. We should, whatever we're watching, whatever we're making, be a sense of joy and celebration.
I think that's a real solid pitch on First Christmas. Yeah, I think it's we hope it to be a Christmas classic, all being well. I spoke earlier about Love Actually, if that made the cut. Maybe years to come. It'll be Elf, Home Alone, Love Actually, First Christmas. That's the hope.
I think it's National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, First Christmas, Home Alone.
Which I'm unintentionally wearing a Christmas Vacation t-shirt here, but I actually just wear Christmas t-shirts like all the time. It's very weird. Like it's one of the last jobs I did had me over the summer last year pretending it's Christmas, and the same thing has happened again. So like I'm like in a permanent Christmas state. Um, but yeah, first Christmas it's a lot of fun. Development can be a lot of plate spinning, but things are going in a really fun place with this. And I guess in terms of the kind of promotion stuff, people can kind of just catch if you look at my production company, Ask Seek Knock, and visit askseeknock.co.uk. A lot of the stuff's there, or First Christmas Film on Instagram and Facebook. I think Keith, do you want to very briefly? I don't know, maybe you can trim Troy if there's too much, but I think translations is also a thing to kind of talk about. Your last feature.
Yeah.
Is the stream routes on international or?
Yeah, it's on Fossum. Anyone could watch it for free with ads. It's a meditation on mental health's impact on romance. I shot it first lifting of lockdown. I had 7 crew members. I built it around this actress who's amazing named Kate Morgan-Jones, who's from Wales. I have a real love with Wales. I was there before, what's his name? For Ryan Reynolds. uh, and yeah, I reversed engineered this little film that I was so like I'm so proud of. We managed to get it in cinemas in the UK, and has the streamer release. And from the back of that, I managed to meet Luke, and we worked on a sketch show.
But I guess the other sort of extension of the First Christmas promo as well is something that we are mentioned in, but I also think it's just a real nice thing to push is Film Stories magazine. Oh yeah, I've got mine here as well. Yeah, look at that. There we go. And it's a brilliant magazine from Simon Brew, who founded Den of Geek as well. And their front cover is supporting independent film. They get a lot of the big interviews still. There's an interview with Chris Columbus and Gareth Edwards and Heather Graham in this issue, but also on the front cover is stuff like First Christmas, and there's a lovely 3-page piece about First Christmas in there. But if people like film, I don't know how easy it is to get internationally, but I know it is online and stuff like that.
Sort of thing. But Keith, I just want to say to begin with, that elevator pitch, that 5-minute elevator pitch you just gave for First Christmas was fantastic. That is, I mean, if you can cut that out and just put that out there, that's a fantastic example of, I mean, now is it, I didn't read the full press kit, even though it is like only 2 pages long and all that sort of, I just want to make sure I had proper names and all that sort of thing. When is this due to be done or released for?
A little bit. Oh, sorry. Do you want to?
No, I just wanted to say that what we're working towards is a Christmas 2026 release.
Okay, so that's
right,
reasonable, right?
All being well, it's a terrifying world of, I think anyone listens to Minute by Minute will know about the number of hurdles that productions face. But that is absolutely our goal, and everything is moving towards that at the moment. So yeah, it's a long time to wait to some people, but it will fly by, and we've got a real fun story to tell, and I'm excited to get Shropshire on the map. It's my hometown, well, my home county, and when I first read the script, it didn't have any specific places, and normally I love any excuse to go somewhere nice and new to film. I'm like, let's find a way of setting it in Cornwall. I love Cornwall. But the moment I read it, I went, "Oh, this is Shropshire. This is like it feels like my home." And I sort of took Keith around Shropshire, and it's Shropshire's the closest to the idea of Britain that most of the international listeners will think Britain is. And yeah, I'm very excited to share First Christmas, and my sort of feature film producing debut.
Excellent. All right. So on that note, we're going to wrap up this particular minute. Again, thank you, Luke. Thank you, Keith, for joining for this particular minute. I want to also thank the audience for joining in on this train ride that we're currently going through. Be sure to check out to the show notes for links to all the stuff that came up in this particular minute. It's very important that everything gets looked at and all that sort of thing because that's what these gentlemen are here for. They're content creators that are doing huge things, and I myself am a fan of the making and producing and of movies and whatnot, and I wholeheartedly support you guys as I'm excited to see this movie. And again, all I know is what the listeners have basically heard as well. And again, I'm I am a horror guy. I am a Halloween fan and all that sort of thing. But you know what? I think if you're going to come up with a seasonal movie, I think Christmas might be high up on my list of movies as well. And it's like, yeah, when you reflect on it, I'm like, yeah, well, yeah, I guess that's a Christmas movie. And like, no, that's a fun Christmas movie. And as you guys are going through the list, I'm like, yeah, well, I guess I like a lot more Christmas movies
We
than
also
I.
like we want the sort of Christmas movie that you could watch in the middle of the year and not feel too bad about it. Like we
Those,
spoke.
yes,
I mean, that actually is that for me. And there's
yeah.
lots of other pieces that, yeah, I think with a song enough story, Christmas is a character and a setting, but also like it's also just a circumstance in which this story happens. And yeah, I think that's the other thing that sort of excites me is I think if you can watch it if you hate Christmas, but also if you hate Christmas, why do you hate Christmas? Let's have a chat.
What is wrong with you? Also, the nice thing about having a Christmas movie that doesn't have to be viewed during uh, Christmas time is very approachable for, movies by minute audience
Yeah,
as well. Yeah.
email us, start prepping the show. Whoever.
Exactly, exactly. Start making all your show notes now, and then we'll see what we can do in about a year and a bit.
And if you're desperate, make the translations minute. Get in at Keith's Film Translations. There's so much to talk about as well.
All right. So once again, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, audience. And I got nothing else to say except see you next Wednesday.
You've just been listening to a Planet Geek production of Do You Want to Party? A Movies by Minute podcast of the 1985 The Return of the Living Dead. Please be sure to subscribe, download, comment, share, rate, and review. Be sure to follow us on our social media platforms: Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Tumblr, or Letterboxd. Search for Planet Geek Productions. X, former Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky, search for Planet Geek Pod. Or send us an email to planetgeekpod@gmail.com. Our closing music is provided by Night Chill. See the show notes for more details. Once again, thanks for tuning in, and farewell, fiends.
Exactly. That's a perfect example. Yes. Really, you're a Doctor Who fan, are you, Luke?
It was half of our show, wasn't it? Yeah. That went on for a bit.
Yeah. Now we're in the middle of a scene, so I just got to find myself where I am in this particular. Oh,
I had the pleasure on one of my first TV series that I worked on. I was just the camera driver. It was called, it's either Love Life or True Love. They changed the title on us, but it was BBC working title TV series. And Jenny Agutter, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing her surname,
right,
but she's
yeah.
an American Werewolf in London.
Yeah.
Absolutely lovely. Just want to throw that out there. She's very kind person.
I love hearing that. I love hearing that. Yeah. That's the other thing too. I mean, to go into, because my first Movies by Minute podcast was for An American Werewolf in London. So I spent a good amount of time combing through it and all that sort of thing. One of the best things was the commentary track were David and Jack. But they every time she comes onto the screen, they're both like fawning over her and all that sort of thing as how spectacular it is. And from what I've heard from every other person that has interacted with her, is nothing but amazing things to say about Jenny. So yeah, but yeah.
That's great. And it's good to know, Keith. I don't think you've mentioned working with her before. I absolutely adore The Railway Children. Is one of my favorite films. So that gives very different genre, but good to know that she's lovely.
Yeah, her sequence was with Billy Piper, her Jenny Agutter, and Kaya Scalerio. That's the three of them. So if you haven't seen that show, it's a totally different theme and genre from the film we're talking, but it's worth it. Yeah, it's worth the time. Are you going to do the other two films, Troy?
I don't think I am. I'm sort of I do have a plan for my next one, and what I am planning on doing is like this. I'm doing this week by week, so it's going to take me until like the beginning of March of next year because I'm doing it on a weekly basis. So 91 minutes gets you 91 weeks and all that sort of thing. But I have planned on sticking to the 80s for my next one. And in September of 2026, I want to start a new one because it's the birthday of Cassandra Peterson.
Okay.
And I want to do one devoted to Elvira, Mistress of the Dark from 1987.
Okay.
So again, another influential movie on me as a kid and all that sort of thing. I've been a fan of her since I can early remember and all that sort of thing, even before the movie itself and whatnot.
Impressive. I mean, Keith, if you had a thing, sorry, I'm tangling off a lot, but if you could do a minute by minute and you had all the time on like a film, is there one that you'd?
I mean, there's a few. To be honest with you, the first thing I'd want to do is probably the TV series 6 Feet Under. I just absolutely love that show, and just I don't know if they've done it. You know, like I know Alan. I've listened to a lot of podcasts where Alan Ball is guest on. I mean, they must have done it. They must have. It's an HBO series, but just it's humorous. It's also dramatic. It's family based. It's weird. It's in a funeral parlor. Like, come on, what more could you?
Right, yeah.
The first time Keith and I worked together was a sketch that I wrote that was in a funeral parlor. So it's weird.
Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! Why am I forgetting the actor's name all of a sudden? Why did all of a sudden I go to say his name and
it happens?
Oh my God! It's gonna be. Oh my God! It's going to be a longer than usual episode, but I do not care because it was just for me that was an entertaining time. I hope you guys were satisfied with getting out what you wanted and all that sort of thing.
First podcast. I should have said that on air, but and that shows you that I have been podcasts when I'm talking about on air as well. Like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I didn't realize you hadn't done.
Yeah, I was just thinking about, I've done tons of like radio interviews which have been transformed, but like nothing that was authentically a podcast first. So, there you go.
I'm extremely honored. Thank you.